It was the 3rd of November, and the wind off Narragansett Bay had already started carrying that particular bite that announces winter's arrival. I was standing in the back office of my bookstore, surrounded by teetering stacks of secondhand novels and the comforting scent of aged paper and Earl Grey tea, when I found the envelope. It was tucked inside a battered copy of the shipping news that William had been reading during his afternoon break. The envelope contained a cashier's check, made out to cash, for $75,000, dated just 10 days prior. My hands trembled as I held it, the paper feeling suddenly too thin, too insubstantial for the weight of what it represented. William had been with me for nearly 4 years, 4 years of sleeping on a cot in the storage room, for years of rotating between the same 3 wool sweaters I'd found for him at the St. Vincent Delaware Paul Society, for years of accepting the $12 a day I could barely afford to pay him, plus meals and a roof that leaked when the rain came hard. And here was a check for more money than my little shop made in a good season. I heard the brass bell above the front door jingle, William returning from his daily walk to Roger Williams Park. He always left at precisely 3 o'clock, no matter the weather, claiming the hour of movement helped him think clearly. I slipped the check back into the book, placed it on the shelf, and felt my heart hammer against my ribs like it was trying to escape. Let me go back. Let me explain how this all began, because you're probably wondering why a 63-year-old widow running a barely solvent bookstore in Providence, Rhode Island, would take a chance on a homeless man in the first place. It was a Thursday morning in late September, 4 years earlier. I'd arrived at the shop early, as I always did, my fingers numb as I fumbled with the keys in the gray half-light. That's when I saw him, a man somewhere in his late 50s, sitting against the weathered brick wall beside my entrance. He had a canvas duffel bag, a rolled sleeping bag, and that look in his eyes that I recognized immediately. It was the same expression my husband wore in his final months, before cancer took him. Hollow. Exhausted. As if the world had extracted everything vital and left only the husk behind. "Morning," I said, my voice sounding too loud in the empty street. He nodded, but didn't speak. "You've been here all night?" I asked. "Yes, ma'am." "I'll move along. I know you're opening up." Something in his voice made me pause. It wasn't the raspy cadence of someone long on the streets. It was measured, educated. This wasn't a man who'd grown up in shelters and underpasses. I should have unlocked the door, gone inside, and let him move on. My son Michael had said as much the previous evening during our weekly phone call. "Mom, you need to sell that bookstore and move down to Virginia with us. You're 63, living alone in that drafty old house, running a business that's hemorrhaging money. Dad's been gone for 3 years. It's time." Maybe I was being stubborn. Maybe I was being foolish. But something in me rebelled against the idea that my life was already behind me. "Can you lift heavy boxes?" I asked the man. He looked up, surprise registering in his gray eyes. "Yes, ma'am." "Can you be reliable? Show up on time?" "Yes, ma'am." "I can't pay much. $12 a day cash. But I'll feed you. There's a small room in the back with a half bath. You can stay there if you need a place to sleep. In exchange, you help me run this place. Organize inventory, help customers, keep things clean. Deal?" He stared at me for what felt like a full minute. Then he stood slowly, as if his joints protested, and extended his hand. "William. William Dawson." "Eleanor Whitmore," I said, taking his hand. It was calloused but warm. "Welcome aboard." That's how it began. My daughter Emily was furious when I told her. She drove up from Philadelphia the following weekend, marched into my shop, took one look at William alphabetizing the poetry section, and pulled me into the back room with the force of a hurricane. "Mom, have you lost your mind? You hired a homeless stranger. You're letting him sleep in your building. Do you understand how dangerous this is? He's been here a week, Emily. He's polite, works harder than anyone I've ever employed, and hasn't taken so much as a bookmark. You don't know his history. He could have a record. He could be running from something. He could be someone who needs help," I countered. "Someone who deserves a second chance." Emily's eyes filled with tears, and I saw the little girl who used to hide in the fort I'd make from extra book boxes. "Mom, I worry about you. Since Dad died, you've been making choices that seem impulsive." I just want you to be safe. I softened, pulled her into a hug that smelled of her childhood perfume and the lavender soap she still used. I know, sweetheart. But I'm okay. Truly. And William, he's a good man. I can feel it. She didn't believe me, but she left, shaking her head and muttering about stubborn mothers. Over the following months, William became essential in ways I hadn't anticipated. He had a photographic memory for inventory, could tell you exactly where a particular title was shelved without checking the system. Customers adored him. He'd listen to their vague descriptions. It's about a woman who moves to a coastal town and finds an old letter and within moments place the exact book in their hands. He repaired the broken banister on our staircase, fixed the ancient boiler that had been making death rattle noises for years, and reorganized our entire categorization system so efficiently that we cut restocking time in half. He never asked for more money, never complained when the toilet clogged or when I asked him to work late during our author events. When I tried to give him a raise after 6 months, he refused. The $12 is more than generous, Eleanor. You're already providing shelter and purpose. That's worth more than you know. But William, you work 10 hours some days. $12 isn't. I don't need money, he said quietly, his gaze fixed on the worn wooden floor. I need this. I need somewhere to be. Something to do. You gave me that. I didn't understand then, but I let it go. My book club friends started asking questions, of course. They met at the shop every Wednesday night, and they'd watch William sweeping up, see him retreat to the back with his dinner, usually whatever I'd cooked extra of, stew or casserole, portioned into a plastic container. Eleanor, how long is this arrangement going to last? My friend Linda asked one evening, her voice gentle but probing. As long as he needs, I said, perhaps too defensively. But don't you think he should be trying to get back on his feet? Find his own place. He is on his feet, I insisted. Right here. Privately, though, I wondered. Was I helping him or keeping him stagnant? Was this comfortable routine actually a cage? Then came the financial crisis. Year 3. The mega bookstore opened in the Providence Place Mall, 2 floors of bestsellers and coffee shops. Amazon was eating small businesses like mine for breakfast. My sales dropped by nearly half in 8 months. I started dipping into the modest savings my husband had left me, then into my retirement account. When that ran dry, I began missing mortgage payments on my 1920s bungalow in the West End. I didn't tell William. Didn't tell Emily. I just kept showing up each morning, unlocking the door, turning on the lights, pretending everything was fine. It wasn't fine. The bank called. 3 months behind. Foreclosure proceedings would begin in 30 days unless I came up with $14,000. $14,000 I didn't have. I sat in my office, the foreclosure notice trembling in my hands, trying not to cry. At 61, I was about to lose my home, the house where I'd raised Emily, where I'd nursed her father through his final weeks, where every creaking floorboard held a memory. That's when William knocked on my office door, a mug of chamomile tea steaming in his hand. Eleanor, are you all right? I wiped my eyes quickly. Fine. Just tired. He set the tea down and looked at me with those perceptive gray eyes. You're lying. What's wrong? Nothing I can't handle, William. Please. His voice was soft but insistent. I've worked beside you for 3 years. I know when something's broken. So I told him. The mortgage, the foreclosure, the $14,000, the terror of losing everything. He listened without interruption, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he simply asked, how much exactly? 14,000. But William, I'm not asking. Give me 2 days. Then he left. Didn't return that night or the next. I panicked. Had I overwhelmed him? Had my financial desperation driven him away? On the 3rd morning, he walked in at 9 o'clock as if nothing had happened, carrying a plain envelope. Inside was a cashier's check made out to me for $18,000. I felt the floor tilt beneath my feet. William, where did you get this? I had some savings. Savings? You've been sleeping on a cot, wearing donated clothes, eating leftovers for 3 years. Where could you possibly? I had money set aside, he interrupted quietly. From before. Please, Eleanor, take it. Save your house. I was staring at the check, my mind refusing to assemble the puzzle pieces. William, who are you? He looked at me for a long moment, then sighed. Someone who needed to disappear for a while. Someone who needed to remember what mattered. That's not an answer. I know. But it's all I can give you right now. Please take it. We can talk about the rest later. I wanted to push. I wanted answers. But I also needed to save my house. So I took the check, deposited it the next day, paid off the arrears, and had $4,000 left over to keep the store running another few months. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. That night, after William had gone to sleep, I did something I'm still not proud of. I went through his things. Not his backpack, that felt like too deep a violation. But I noticed the worn leather satchel he always kept close, tucked under his cot. Inside, I found a wallet containing 3 items, a driver's license, a faded photograph, and a business card. The license read, William David Cheney, age 58, address in Beacon Hill, Boston. The photograph showed a younger William, perhaps in his 40s, standing beside an elegant Asian woman and 2 teenage children, a boy and a girl. They were smiling on what looked like a university campus, autumn leaves blazing behind them. The business card read, William D. Cheney, Chief Executive Officer, Beacon Books Publishing. I sat down hard on the concrete floor, the cold seeping through my jeans. Beacon Books Publishing. Everyone in the literary world knew that name. One of the most respected independent publishers in New England, acquired by a media conglomerate 6 years ago in a deal worth hundreds of millions. William wasn't just a man who'd fallen on hard times. William had been was wealthy. And he'd been lying to me for 3 years. I felt betrayed, confused, angry. Why would someone with that kind of background be sleeping on a cot in my stockroom? Why work for $12 a day when he could buy the entire block? I put everything back exactly as I'd found it. Went home. Didn't sleep. The next morning, I confronted him. Beacon Books Publishing, I said as soon as he walked in. You were the CEO. His face went pale. He didn't deny it. Why didn't you tell me? He sat heavily in the reading chair, the one with the patched upholstery. Because I didn't want you to look at me differently. I didn't want you to treat me differently. William, I've been paying you $12 a day. You've been sleeping in a storage room. I've been making you soup and worrying whether you had enough to eat. And all this time, I was exactly where I needed to be, he said softly. That's not an explanation. No, you're right. You deserve the truth. He took a deep breath, his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles whitened. The woman in the photograph, that was my wife, Catherine. The children were our son and daughter, David and Lily. 5 years ago, they were driving home from Lily's college orientation. A drunk driver crossed the median on I-95. They were gone before the ambulance arrived. My anger drained away, replaced by a hollow ache. Oh, William. I'm so sorry. I fell apart after that. Completely. I sold the company 3 months later for $180 million. Didn't care. Couldn't care. Money meant nothing when everything that mattered was gone. He was staring at his hands as if they belonged to someone else. I bought a townhouse in Beacon Hill, filled it with their things, their photographs, their books, and sat there alone for 2 years, drinking scotch and waiting to die. My doctor told me if I didn't change something, I'd be dead within a year. What changed? I left. Walked out one morning with one bag, left everything else. Set up automatic payments for property taxes and bills, kept a single account, and disappeared. I needed to find out if I could still be a person without the money, the status, the recognition. I needed to remember who I was before I became a CEO, a husband, a father. He looked up at me. I ended up in Providence, slept in Burnside Park for 3 weeks. Then I found your bookstore. Found you. And for the first time in years, I had a reason to open my eyes in the morning. I sat down across from him, the morning sun streaming through the front windows, illuminating dust motes dancing between us. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because you treated me like a human being, Eleanor. Not like a former CEO. Not like a grieving widower. Not like some rich man playing at being poor. You just treated me like William. Someone who needed help and deserved a chance. Do you know how rare that is? But William, I could have helped you more if I'd known. I didn't need more help. I needed exactly what you gave me. Purpose. Routine. A place to belong. That's worth more than any bank account. We sat in silence while the neighborhood woke up outside, delivery trucks rumbling past, students hurrying to class. The $18,000, I finally said, is nothing, Eleanor. I could write you a check for $2 million and not notice it's gone. But that's not what you need from me. And it's not what this relationship is about. Then what is it about? He smiled sadly. It's about two people who lost their way finding each other. It's about discovering that value isn't measured in dollars. It's about the family we choose when the family we had is gone. I felt tears tracking down my cheeks. My husband died 4 years ago. Cancer. And my son keeps telling me to give up the store, move to Virginia, stop fighting for something that's dying. But this shop, it's all I have left of the life Tom and I built. If I lose it, I lose him all over again. I know, William said gently. That's why I could never let you lose your house. That's why I'll do whatever it takes to keep this place running. Because it's not about the money, Eleanor. It's about holding on to what makes us who we are. That conversation shattered everything and rebuilt it stronger. William started contributing financially, not as an employee, but as a partner. He invested $250,000, enough to modernize our inventory system, build a proper website, and create an online store that could compete. But he still slept in the storage room, still worked the counter, still wore those same wool sweaters. When Emily found out, she drove up immediately. Mom, do you know who this man really is? William Cheney, former CEO of Beacon Books, worth over $180 million, and he's been sleeping in your stockroom. He's been healing, I said. Just like I have. She studied me for a long moment, then her expression softened. You really care about him. He's become family, Em. Does he? Is there something romantic? No. This isn't about that. This is about two broken people who found purpose in helping each other. He lost his wife and children. I lost your father. We understand each other's grief in a way no one else can. She hugged me then hard. I'm glad you're not alone, Mom. I was so worried. The bookstore began to thrive. With William's business expertise and my passion for literature, we created something unique, a community hub that hosted author readings, writing workshops, even a small press that published local poets. Within 18 months, we were not just solvent, but profitable. But more importantly, I had my purpose back and William had his. One evening, nearly a year after our big conversation, we were closing up together, the fading light turning the shop golden. William was shelving the day's returns when he paused, a copy of The Year of Magical Thinking in his hand. Eleanor, I need to tell you something. What is it? I've been talking to David's widow, Rebecca. She reached out 6 months ago. Wanted to reconnect, see how I was doing. That's wonderful, William. She has a son, my grandson, Oliver. He's 4. I've never met him. His voice cracked. I disappeared on them. Cut everyone off after the accident. Rebecca lost her husband. Oliver lost his father. And instead of being there, I vanished into my own grief. It's not too late, I said, placing my hand over his. I know. Rebecca wants me to visit, meet Oliver, be part of their lives again. Then you should go. He looked at me, worry creasing his forehead. But the store will be fine. I managed before you. Go be the grandfather Oliver deserves. That's more important than any bookstore. He did. Flew to Boston the following week, stayed for 12 days. When he returned, something in him had shifted. He moved differently, stood taller. I met him, he said, showing me photos on his phone of a bright-eyed boy with William's jawline and his mother's dark curls. Oliver is. He's incredible, Eleanor. So curious. So full of life. He reminds me of David at that age. Will you move back to Boston? No. But I'm going to visit every month. And Rebecca and Oliver might come here sometimes. I want him to know his grandfather. I want to be part of his life. I can't reclaim the 4 years I lost, but I can be present from now on. That's beautiful, William. I wouldn't be here without you, he said. You showed me that it's possible to build a life after loss, that there's still purpose, still joy, still family to be found. You saved me, Eleanor. In every way that matters. I thought about that first morning 4 years ago when I'd found him huddled against my wall, about the impulse that made me offer him a job, about my son's concern that I was being reckless. They'd all been wrong. Sometimes the people who need saving save us right back. I still run the bookstore. William still works there, though he now splits his time between Providence and Boston. He finally moved into a small apartment 2 blocks away, but he insists on keeping his shifts, on being there for our community, on maintaining the life we've built. My son visits more often now, bringing his twins from Virginia during school breaks. They call William Uncle Will, and he teaches them about first editions and tells them stories that make even 10-year-olds excited about reading. And sometimes, when the shop is quiet and it's just the two of us, William and I sit in our reading nook with mugs of Irish breakfast tea and talk about life, about loss and healing, about the unexpected ways we find family, about how value can't be measured in bank accounts or property values or quarterly returns. It's measured in small moments. Shared cups of tea. The customer who tells us a book we recommended changed their life. The grandson learning to love stories. The son who stopped worrying and started visiting. The two broken people who found each other and discovered that sometimes the best way to heal yourself is to help someone else. I'm 67 now. The store is thriving. William is still here, still my partner, still my friend. And every morning when I unlock the door and flip the sign to open, I think about that September morning when I made what seemed like a crazy decision to offer a homeless man a job. It was the best choice I ever made. Because I didn't just save him. He saved me right back. And that's worth more than all the money in the world.